to go down to Latin America to meet a friend who honestly at the time was still kind of just a random internet stranger off of Instagram. Hi everybody, it's Olivia. Thanks for tuning back in. So this is episode 2 of my series about how I became a world traveler. If you would like to hear about my study abroad experience, you can click over here. That was my first video. Now we're going to start talking about how I got into travel as a post-college adult. So first, a little bit of backstory about me. I have always been very inspired by kind of like the exotic and the different. Even from when I was a small kid, my favorite Disney movies were Aladdin and Mulan because the soundtracks and the characters' outfits were just so different from what I was used to seeing in my day-to-day life. And in elementary school, I had a friend who was from Tamil Nadu, India. Well, she was first generation. Her family was from there. I now remember I always loved going over to their house and seeing how it was decorated and hearing her parents talk to her and her little brother in Tamil. And they also were Hindus and had a prayer closet. And I thought that was so interesting. I wanted to know so much. They even invited me when I was a little bit older to go to a Holi celebration that the Indian community in our town had put together. That was so fun. And it was funny because afterwards I had to go meet up with my grandma and her new boyfriend at the time in a really traditional down-home Southern cafe. And I looked like a little purple goblin. It was really funny. And then late middle school into early high school, a new girl came in. And the sweet thing is that her and I are actually to this day still friends. So hugs to you if you ever find this video. But her family, her dad's side is from the Middle East, and she is a Muslim hijabi, and she was already wearing hijab at the time. I remember the first sleepover that we had as a group together when she got to take her head covering off when we were in private, and she was showing us how it was wrapped and like explaining some things to us. And I just really loved learning about other cultural traditions and religious traditions and all those sorts of things. And I'm so grateful that from an early age, I got to have more than, just seeing things on National Geographic or watching Mulan or Aladdin. And I got to experience all this intercultural stuff. And it continued as I got older. I went to early college starting at the age of 16. And I was in a group of girls where I was actually the only native English speaker and the only native born American. So that was really cool. And I just absolutely loved helping those girls navigate the English language because a lot of them were actually pretty fresh off the boat international students. I loved watching the different patterns between, depending on their native language, the different kinds of kind of errors or difficulties they would have with the English language. I just totally nerded out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be an English as a second language teacher. And thanks to that, I got to start working at the Office of International Studies in my 4-year college because even though I switched majors, me initially going in as an English studies major, wanting to focus on teaching English as a second language, put me in that office. And I was put in a program called the First Friends Program, where my job was to help the international students out. So I would get them from the airport. I would take them to Walmart, kind of show them around town, explain how life works here. And then they would have me as a resource for the rest of the semester or year that they were there, just to help them navigate American life. And I really loved doing that. And I actually made some really good friends. There was one group of girls. It was a combination of girls from Taiwan, Korea, and an Austrian girl. And we actually went on an out-of-town trip together. It was amazing. My little sister even got to meet them. I just loved it so much. They even invited me to go out to California with them for spring break, but unfortunately, I was already working. If I hadn't been, I would have absolutely loved it. They are really sweet girls. Then I graduated in December of 2019, and I went into healthcare. Then, well, we all know what happened, and the world got really small for everybody, including me. I'm grateful that I at least got to get out with my job. I got to get out and have human interaction because I was living on my own at the time. I can't imagine how it must have been for all y'all people who lived alone in big cities in those little studio apartments and not even hardly being allowed to go out and maybe having a work from home job. Oh my gosh, I hope everybody is doing so much better now 4 years down the road. I remember it was like December of 2020 because I was one of the first people to get the vaccine in my state. I got Moderna because at the time, the Pfizer was being reserved for bigger hospitals in bigger cities, at least in my state. And so our world started to open back up a little bit. My state opened up pretty fast once the vaccine was out to the general public. But I still kind of kept to myself, partially because I'm a workaholic. I still am. I'm not even going to say I was. And yeah, but anyways, I did start to learn Spanish at the beginning of 2021. And that was really awesome to me. I got inspired by a patient experience that I had, and it just catapulted me. I had played with language learning before as someone interested in international studies and everything, but I had never, ever been so dedicated like I was this time around. And I remember getting on my social medias and posting whenever I finally got that 30-day Duolingo streak. And I was also on Pimsleur, and I did 30 days straight of that. And I felt so dedicated and motivated and proud of myself. And I started following language learning apps and everything on Facebook and Instagram, especially Instagram. I was kind of getting into my little Instagram phase at the time. And then all of a sudden, I get this message. I remember I was sitting in the armchair of my parents' living room because I was finally getting to visit them again. And I'm just kind of like chilling, scrolling through my phone, being like, oh my gosh, I'm learning this new language. And this message pops up. So now you guys are going to get to meet the second main character of literally all of these journeys outside of the England journey we've already heard about and the Ireland one. So everybody, without any more to do, here is Angel. Okay, y'all, I know that there wasn't really a picture there. Sorry about that. But it's because Anka and I talked about this before I ever made this channel, because I knew that I wanted to start doing Storytime style and everything. And there's genuinely, he really is the main character in all this. There's no way to just delete him out of all the stories. But he also doesn't want his face in there or anything. He wants to maintain privacy. And it does feel weird and impersonal for me to just be constantly saying my friend or my Peruvian friend. So we mutually agreed for him to have a pseudonym. And he said that I could pick it out. Entonces, yo sé que tú estás viéndolo también. Espero que te gustes ese nombre. Y gracias por apoyarme con todo este. Abrazos de los Estados Unidos. But yes, so Angel had sent me a message, and I remember clicking into it, and I was just kind of like, I had responded to messages from non-friends before. They were never explicit hello dears, if you know what I'm getting at there, but they ended up just being thinly veiled ones, and it never ended well, and it always just ended with me having to block somebody. So I clicked into his profile first, and to be honest, I thought he was fake because he is into photography, and he had all these very beautifully curated photos on his profile, and his profile picture at the time actually looked like an actor photo shoot or something. And he was a pretty, in my opinion, above average attractiveness guy in his 20s, and I'm like, why in the world would this person be messaging me? There has to be something weird going on. But, I was kind of bored and lonely still at the time in early 2021. So I was like, let's just see where this goes. He had wrote me a message that I think he actually put quite a bit of time and effort into, where it was one paragraph in Spanish, one paragraph in English. And it was like, hi, I'm Angel. I'm from Lima, Peru. I'm trying to learn English. I see that you're learning Spanish. Would you like to be conversation partners? And I was just like, okay, sure, let's try it out. We started exchanging voice messages as well pretty early on to, practice pronunciation and see how each other could talk in each other's languages and how natural accents and canters work in building our target language. And I mean, his voice sounded like it could match the picture, like, a guy in his 20s. Then around late February, early March, we did our first video call. And I remember two big things about this video call. So the first one, of course, was I was like, oh my gosh, the face matches the picture. This is him. He's real. And also, I just remember being so embarrassed about my Spanish level at the time because I had honestly overestimated it. We kind of struggled out talking about pets and music. Luckily, his English level was a lot higher than my Spanish level, so we were able to communicate. And from there, we started doing video calls basically weekly. I think sometimes even twice a week. And yeah, we were vibing. I mean, it was so fun. It was a language exchange and a cultural exchange. One of the reasons that I always really loved international friendships and things like that was because I genuinely saw my friends from other countries as kind of windows into this world that I had never been to. And now I have that times a million, like sorry, y'all. I cut myself off because I said a word that I'm not sure if it's okay to say on here. It wasn't a swear word, I promise, but it was still something. Anyways, now you just have to stay with that curiosity. But it was just like that exchange times a million. And he would send me videos of his neighborhood and just pictures of food. And my most favorite thing in the world is when he would send me videos of the view from outside his bedroom because he lives in a hillside neighborhood. And I was able to see just all the twinkling lights along the hillside. And it was so magical to me. I loved it so much. In the early summer, I took an intensive course for about a month. And I remember that Amkela and I had about 2-week period where we were only just messaging every now and then, no video calls. In our next video call, we were both like so happy and proud of me because I went from barely being able to string a sentence together to being able to have a fluid 10-minute conversation. And it was just so amazing. I was so like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. What is the next step? And I told myself, well, the next step is immersion. I should go to Latin America. And I was looking into group travel opportunities and I was talking to Angel about them. I'm like, oh, look, there's this company. They have tours to Colombia and Dominican Republic. Oh, and look, there's even one in Peru because you guys have Machu Picchu. And he was like, oh my gosh, if you're ever in Peru, I would love to meet up and I could give you a tour of my city. And in that moment, I was just reflecting on, how we vibe so well. And he was just one of those people that even through a screen, like even before our first video chat, he just had this really good vibe to him, like almost like a light or something. And I was just like, but we were worlds apart. And so instantly I just jumped and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to Peru. When should I get my tickets? When's a good time to come? And he was just like, oh my gosh, you really just like that? You're just going to come to Peru? And I was like, yes, I'm going to come to Peru and we're going to hang out and you're going to show me your city. So yes, now I'm going to be a little mean and make you guys wait till next week because I want you to come back next Friday so that you can hear about how I prepared for this trip to go down to Latin America to meet a friend who honestly at the time was still kind of just a random internet stranger off of Instagram. If you enjoy this content, please keep coming back. Hit the bell so that you know when I have new videos out. And yes, thank you for your click. I hope you have a beautiful weekend.